commemorates the historic Stonewall riots that took place in 1969. There was a police raid that happened on the Stonewall Inn. The Stonewall Inn was a space where LGBTQ plus patrons were welcomed in an era where it was extremely difficult to be openly LGBTQ plus in any way. What they would try to do is catch out people who were dressed in the wrong gender according to their ID. And this happened on a semi-regular basis. What happened in Stonewall wasn't the first time, but the nature of it was extremely tense. It got very physical very quickly. Stormy DeLarvery, a Black lesbian, was considered the person whose arrest really triggered the whole situation. And what started off as yet another example of police brutality against the community transformed into a spontaneous riot.
Rainbow washing, a term that has been around for quite a while, yet many of us aren't aware of it, even if it's happening to us or one of our LGBTQ+ friends. So this June I set out on a quest to investigate the different aspects of rainbow washing by talking to experts and different media professionals.
It's this idea that companies are putting up this facade, this rainbow sort of sticker to say, look, we're amazing, we're doing these things to the LGBT community, primarily to make more money, where they might not actually be doing the work internally within their supply chains to actually support the LGBT community.
It's more about audience perception than it is about actual allyship. As with greenwashing or pinkwashing, it's about superficially aligning yourself with a cause without actually interrogating the ways that you can, as an institution or as a brand, actively contribute to the well-being of those people. Like, I think one of the most egregious examples of rainbow washing is when the Home Office puts like a rainbow flag over their logo while they continue to deport people back to countries where they were seeking asylum from for being queer.
So there was like a study done basically this year, and it found that 25 big corporations donated a combined $10 million to anti-LGBTQ politicians in the US, particularly when it comes to bills which discriminate against transgender people. But at the same time, their logo was all rainbows and all these statements about Pride Month, and it's like complete hypocrisy.
It's also really hard to avoid being part of, and I think a really good example of this actually during Pride Month, particularly in Pride Month during COVID, is Amazon. Amazon as a company has a history of donating to politicians across the political spectrum, including to politicians who often have LGBTQ+ phobic views across the world. Yet, it is not a company that is easily boycotted because, again, in the middle of the pandemic, for anyone who is in urgent need of some sort of supplies, particularly for lower income and working class LGBTQ+ individuals who might not have access to more bespoke services, Amazon's usually the cheapest option.
As much as it sounds like a way of exploiting the LGBTQ+ community, I can't help but think, is rainbow washing entirely bad? Isn't the company or organization openly supporting the community supposed to be a good thing?
Rainbow washing is a tough one because you want people to support you. You want big brands, big companies to support the communities and be there and show that, during Pride, they're going to be behind us. But at the same time, why are you doing it just during Pride? Why do you not just show support throughout the year?
Because in reality, rainbow washing is highlighting the fact that many of these injustices that specifically affected trans women of color, non-binary folks, and femme individuals still have the highest rates of violence being inflicted on them. It's very counterintuitive to see rainbow-themed products and rainbow-themed parades that necessarily don't highlight the struggle and the injustice that is constantly happening.
I think there is a risk that in terms of the wider public, the meaning is being lost. They see it as just a celebration and think, oh, isn't it wonderful? They've got all their rights, job done. But people are being imprisoned and people are dying. This is serious stuff. This is really, really serious stuff. That is the reality of it. And even in our so-called progressive countries, like the United States, the UK, we see all the time black trans women in the United States being brutally murdered just for being trans. That is so serious. And when you consider the rates of suicide as well among LGBTQ young people in the US, in the UK, these aren't issues which are like thousands of miles away. They're right here, they're right on our doorstep, happening now.
While some of the examples of rainbow washing are plain as day, it can often take form in a sort of invisible way that requires reading between the lines. As I found out, one of these indirect ways has to do with the fashion industry. Let's see why.
I started the campaign last year because in 2018 there were quite a few sort of news stories about how brands like Primark and H&M were making pride merch in countries where it was illegal to be gay or that had anti-LGBT laws, as well as no transparency in their supply chain and all of these things. But after that, the kind of news about it just quietened down again and everyone forgot about it. And I was like, no, I think we actually need to keep talking about this. I know that Bangladesh definitely has anti-LGBTQ+ laws, and one of their biggest exports is clothing. They also have one of the lowest monthly wages for garment workers. Turkey is also a place where a lot of clothing is made, and just a couple of days ago, the Pride March in Turkey was broken up by the police. Tens of people were arrested, and there have been lots of politicians there saying that LGBT people simply don't exist.
There's a lot of ambiguous language of a lot of corporations saying we're only donating a certain percentage, and we don't know what percentage. And so when we look into garment workers, especially in the fast fashion industry, right, they're already being exploited. We have to think about the different identities that many of these garment workers hold. Some are gay and trans, some are queer, and who gets to actually speak about their pride or their sexuality, because they are just generally threatened, sexually assaulted, or they fear to lose their job. In these conversations about pride in the Western world that talks about like being free, being happy with who you are, we need to uplift these garment workers. It's in reality, they uplift us because the clothes that we are wearing is made from them.
I don't think the solution is to stop making clothes in these countries, because if you start taking production straight out of these countries, then garment workers who are already paid very little money suddenly have no work. But I think it's about pressuring these brands to actually do more to make their supply chain secure and safe and pay people a living wage.
Like with many contemporary movements and campaigns and issues, rainbow washing has found its place on social media as well.
And one of the things that we've seen is, social media has been kind of awash with all of these rainbow lanyards and images, people changing it, using different kinds of images, and sort of kind of creating this sense of allyship. It's definitely played kind of both a positive and negative role when it comes to, say, LGBTQ equality issues, as well as kind of visibility issues. So I think we also need to think about who are some of these kind of social media spaces actually including. And so when you've got messaging that goes out over there, what kind of messaging is going and who is it targeted at?
This Western worldview of pride has almost shifted in a lot of cultural digital media spaces where it's more celebratory but ignores a lot of the hidden myriads of injustices happening.
Particularly on platforms like Facebook, they will be extremely proud to share their LGBTQ+ credentials. They'll change their logos. Despite having this very kind of visible celebratory presence, some of these social media platforms still have transphobic policies around name changes.
Now that we know all about rainbow washing, we must consider, what does it mean to be a true ally? How can companies or individuals be true supporters of the LGBTQ+ community and be aware of rainbow washing?
I think companies also have such a big impact and such power to influence others that, in my opinion, if they show genuine support, then the world will show a better and more genuine support as well.
I just think companies really need to take a look at themselves and think, why are we doing this? Are we doing it for money, or are we doing this because we truly believe in the cause? And I think unless there's that shift in approach, that Pride, yes, it's lovely to be a celebration and we should have that element of it. Absolutely. We've made some fantastic progress and will continue to do so. But at the same time, they need to realise the very serious elements as well. To be true allies, they need to listen to LGBTQ people as well. And I think within the community itself, we need to listen to each other.
You've opened that door now. You've shown us that you're willing to have these conversations. Let's have them. Let's actually push through. So I see it as a visible stepping stone.
In terms of actually stopping these brands doing what they're doing, it's getting involved in campaigns like Who Made My Pride merch, emailing brands, asking them to do better. And then if you are going to go to Pride events or buy Pride merchandise, getting it from LGBT owned, sustainable and ethical businesses, making your own stuff. And there are tons of other ways to be an active ally to the community.
What has got lost a little bit in social media activism is that one of the most powerful ways that we can support people is on a person-to-person basis. So again, in the workplace, if you overhear someone saying something transphobic or queerphobic and you're an ally, you find a way to call them in and talk to them about it.
And is also to remember that LGBTQ plus individuals have multiple identities. We're not just LGBTQ plus. We are people of color, we're immigrants, we're parents, we're students. We may be tourists, we may be working class, we're disabled. So it's making sure that LGBTQ plus issues are actually included in every conversation. Ally is not an identity that you get to claim for yourself. Allyship is an action of continuous commitment to equity.
Pride has already changed in so many ways since the 1970s and since the first riots and celebrations. But is there a potential future where rainbow washing doesn't exist?
Rainbow washing will continue because it is the only form that big corporations have found to talk about Pride so far.
In terms of the future of Pride, I think it's a very dangerous path to be on because we risk the meaning of Pride being absolutely lost, really. In terms of future generations, we need to remember the past. It is so important to remember the past as well as going forward. We're not saying we have to live in the past, but the past can inform a lot of things that we do today. And I just really fear that that meaning's going to be lost. But fortunately, the positive that I've seen is people are waking up to it. People are really realizing it. I mean, you've got, for example, Reclaim Pride parades happening where they're really taking it back to the roots of Pride, and it's all about the human rights element and the fighting for rights both in your respective country but also around the world.
The simple fact that it's happening every year and will happen every year will remind people, will engage conversation. Children will pass by with their parents, they will see a rainbow flag. Maybe the conversation will start.
What I hope the future of Pride is it celebrates that spirit of inclusivity. It continues to be diverse because diversity is fantastic. And it doesn't lose that spirit of being about a protest. It doesn't lose that spirit about being taking up space unapologetically.